Hey everyone, it's T. So there are a lot of new people. Welcome. If you are new, sometimes I talk about fashion, sometimes I talk about movies. Mostly I just have a lot of interests and very little outlets for them. So yeah, if you like that, you're welcome to stay or not. It's fine. You know, I respect you. So in honor of Pride Month, I thought I would do a little deep dive into But I'm a Cheerleader. But I'm a Cheerleader is a 1999 satirical romantic comedy starring Natasha Lyonne as a cheerleader who... She's a cheerleader whose parents suspect that she is a lesbian, so they send her to a rehabilitation camp. When she gets there, she realizes that she is in fact a lesbian, and then she falls in love with another member of the camp, played by Clea Duvall. This is basically a hear me out kind of film. So really, literally, just hear me out. RuPaul is there because he's RuPaul. He's wearing a straight as great shirt because this is a satire. Dante Basco is there, of Rufio and Zuko fame. Just incredible, amazing. This movie is over 20 years old, but it's also free on YouTube. So if you want to watch that and then come back, you're free to do that too. So I really love the aesthetics of this film. It's literally just the definition of camp. And in fact, the director calls it, quote, the feminization of the camp aesthetic. Almost everything visually in this film is over the top. It's very obvious. It hits you over the head. You know, it's bright and colorful, and it really just drives home the humor of the film. The director is quoted as saying that she wanted to make a gay Clueless. Honestly, at the time, there really hadn't been lesbian comedy. I also made the film when I was in my 20s and also was part of the community. I wanted to skewer not only my community, but also just the absurdity of gay conversion. I mean, I think that's a pretty succinct way to explain it. And the film does in fact survey and critique heteronormativity, sometimes subtly and sometimes not so subtly. For example, I think in past rewatches, I never noticed that the gay male older couple that we see later on in the film is shown to have probably the most emotionally healthy kind of relationship. They have a very emotionally healthy conversation about their feelings, which is not something that you see from any other adult in the film. Now, the less subtle things we'll get to. So the over-the-top color scheme is probably the most obvious thing. The girls are made to wear pink, the boys are made to wear blue. I like that the normal world that Natasha Lyonne's character Megan inhabits at first is very, very brown. I somehow never noticed this, but literally every character besides the counselors that is supposed to be straight wears brown. Her parents' house is brown. The parents of the other teens also wear shades of brown and tan and stuff like that. Now, Megan is almost exclusively seen in yellow, especially during the earlier parts of the movie. She kind of conforms to the aesthetic of those around her and kind of blends in, but also she's seen as an outlier. Mary, the head mistress of the camp, she wears pink, but her office and her bedroom are green. And I was wondering, I don't know if this was purposeful, but I was wondering if it was supposed to be like a kind of Wicked Witch kind of thing. That's just what it reminded me of. Also, just a really aside, I'm not criticizing this at all. Kind of what enhances the campiness of the whole thing is that you can see the paint job of the props and of the decor and stuff like that. You can literally see paint, or it wasn't smoothed out completely, or it's spotty in certain places. Really love that. If I was a production designer, I would be like, no, we don't have to make this look perfect. It's fine. It makes it look better this way. The movie also does a better job at making the set look artificial. In the girls' bedroom, the mattresses are covered in pink plastic mattress covers. The flowers that Mary waters are very obviously fake. And she even pulls them out of the ground, and it's obviously just a plastic tube. Literally, none of the electronics are usable. The vacuum, the car, hair salon stuff, it's all just very shiny, very reminiscent of a Barbie dream house, very unreal, almost uncanny. Yeah, I feel because the camp is supposed to be pushing heteronormativity, and very strict gender roles. It's, you know, it's not a subtle way of critiquing those things, of saying like heteronormativity and gender roles are artificial, but I still think it's effective. Like, subtlety is sometimes for the birds. Also, I'm not going to describe this out loud, but like, look at these tree standees. This is the first time I noticed them, and also they have glitter on them. Amazing, incredible. So in order to transition between the scenes, there are like these cue cards, standee cards that kind of show each step in the program. They're very reminiscent of like 50s and 60s how-to videos. The movie really models like ideal womanhood and ideal manhood, and only those two, as modeled after the 50s and 60s model. They have slideshows with the kind of art that you would see in those like how to be a good wife, like magazines and books and stuff like that. The splicing of like the 90s with like the 60s, the 50s, 60s, like it even runs into the costumes. When Megan is at her parents' house, she wears a lot of like saddle shoes, flare skirts, things that are obviously inspired by the 60s, 50s, 60s. Mary Brown also wears like a suit. You can really see this aesthetic on everyone who is trying to be straight in some way, except for Mary Brown's son. You know, he flirts with RuPaul. Also, the cheerleader uniforms are kind of not, I couldn't pin them in like the 50s, 60s. I don't know many pre-2000s cheerleader uniforms that included just sports bras, but like I'm thinking that that was just an artistic choice. And I also think that the reason why this was done was because most of Megan's fantasies involve the other cheerleaders, and those fantasies I guess wouldn't be as fun if they were wearing like sweaters or whatever. But when the teens go out to have their like night of fun, this is the first time that we see anyone in like actual 90s clothing. Even Megan, who is more like, you know, the more prudish of the bunch, her skirt is much shorter. The fishnets, the jewelry, the shorter hemlines, all that. Amazing. Really bringing the 90s forward. It's really interesting how they associated the eras, like the more modern, with like issuing heteronormative values and all that, you know, very obvious. But so before we move on to final thoughts, let's just take a moment to look at these fun little props. I think they're a little too obvious to analyze in any way, but you know, it's fun to like see these things. When Megan goes to her family's intervention, she literally just sits under a big mouth bass. Just a couple of fish references, but you know, we get it. This curly straw that Rock is drinking from, you know, it's pink. It's not straight. Lots of flower motifs for the lesbians. I really want this, actually. There's this rose scrub brush that they wear when they're like flirting with each other while washing the dishes. The bathroom is covered in daisies, which is really cool because it's also like Megan's assigned color. And there's like lilies, I think, at the entrance to the gay bar. Towards the end of the film, when they have to do the simulation, what's a good way to describe this? The Adam and Eve simulation. We'll just call it that. There is, on the bedside table, there is a banana on one side and strawberries and a glass of milk on the other. Also, just look at Dante Basco in this jumpsuit. It just really makes me really happy. So at the time, the aesthetics of the film are really criticized, despite the fact that they're pretty much like, I don't know, a Tim Burton, Wes Anderson kind of film. I would even go so far as to say like Beetlejuice, Heathers, that kind of thing. You know, Heathers is also a satire? Yes, Heathers is a satire, and it displays its satire through kind of the same elements. I think both of those are considered like cult classics, and also both haven't aged incredibly. You could say Heathers with the increase in school violence. With But I'm a Cheerleader, you know, the way that it treated some of its characters, I know that like gave me pause. I can't say anything more than that because it just gave me pause. The response to it has kind of warmed up in recent years due to its cult following, but at the time I think it was criticized for taking a very serious subject and making a comedy out of it, which I can understand. And we all know that, you know, conversion therapy is an extremely serious subject. It's not a place where people fall in love. It's not a place with incredibly bright colors and goofy adults. But this movie doesn't claim to be a documentary, and I think we have a lot of media, especially now, but also in the past that really showcased the seriousness of the subject. I think, Boy Erased, incredibly heartbreaking. I've never seen The Miseducation of Cameron Post, but that's another one. There are books, there are documentaries. And considering that the director is also a part of the LGBTQ community, she said that she made it for the community to have a comedy. She's quoted as saying, "I also wanted to tell a romantic story and be revolutionary where the lesbians actually end up in love and alive at the end of the movie," which had not really been told at the time. This is an aside, but when I was 16, my best friend and I went on Netflix to try and find all of the women loving women movies. We found 4. The first 3, the main character died, and the last one, the main character's best friend who was in love with her, died. The whole reason that I watched this movie over again is because I was looking at the kinds of gay movies that I've seen in the past, and out of the dozens that I've seen, I will say that only a handful had happy endings, and anyone who has a happy ending does so after going through incredible hardship. So I really welcomed the satire and the comedy of this movie, and the fact that at its core, it's really just a love story and not necessarily a complete critique of reality. We have movies that are critiques of reality and books that are critiques of reality, and I don't think that we need every critique to be completely and honestly 100% serious. Watching it again, I was smiling throughout. To be young and to see that hope at the end of the tunnel is something that we really need, I think. So yeah, it's not perfect, but if we could have more things that are more better, that's not the right. Nope, not at all. If we could have more things that are better and hopeful and joyful, I would be great. I would be so happy with that. But in the meantime, we have this. So if you want to watch it, if you've never watched it, the aesthetics are campy and A+, 100%. Just so good. But yeah, just wanted to do a little dive into But I'm a Cheerleader. Happy Pride Month. If you like this video, make sure to like it, subscribe if you want, comment if you feel like it. Yeah, thanks.